Hello Jenica, and here is my lesson on the lymphatic system. So, as we were discussing before, we've got blood coming into the capillary bed through an artery here, branching into an arteriole, and this will be oxygenated blood, and it's travelling down the capillaries. And the idea is that all of the substances in the blood that are needed by the cell will diffuse in through the fenestrations in the capillary. So that would go via the tissue fluid, which is here, and into the cell. So we've got capillary, tissue fluid, cell. And so we need to zoom in onto the capillary to find out how that's happening. So if we look at my lovely diagram here, hopefully it's in focus. I'll try and hold it still. So we've got the capillary coming down with oxygenated blood, and that's represented by the red blood cells here, and they're flowing down the capillary and out the other side. There are other things in the blood, such as plasma proteins, and we've got these dots here which represent glucose, ions and lipids. So all of this stuff is coming through. Oh, and we've got white blood cells here. So all of this stuff is coming through. The red blood cells can't get through the holes in the capillary, the fenestrations, but the white blood cells can. And so can the ions and the glucose and the lipids, and they can all get through into the tissue fluid which is surrounding the cells, and then they can eventually get into the cells where it's needed. Okay, so that's all happening, and then the waste products would then diffuse out of the cell and back in things like carbon dioxide in that way. So we've also got, so what's causing the flow of things to go through? Well, you'll know from osmosis that when we've got a region of high concentration of solutes compared to a lower concentration, we would have the water would tend to move in this direction by a process called osmosis. So water would naturally, if there wasn't anything else happening, naturally the water would want to move that way. Because of osmosis, water moves from a region of high water potential or low solute concentration to a lower water potential or high solute concentration. So that's what would happen, and that would happen all the way down the capillary were it not for something called hydrostatic pressure. So the osmosis is driven by the presence of these plasma proteins. So that's why the water wants to go that way. And there is something called an oncotic pressure of 3.3 kilopascals. So that is the oncotic pressure. And that's the same as osmosis. But when it's water moving into a capillary, they give it this special name, oncotic. I don't know why. They should call it osmotic pressure, but they don't. They call it oncotic pressure, so don't be worried about it. That is just the pressure driving water from here, the tissue fluid, into here. Okay, so the water wants to go that way, but because of the pumping of the heart, creating this strong hydrostatic pressure, so that's the pressure of the blood flowing through the capillaries. We've got very high hydrostatic pressure driving the movement of water in this direction. So because this number, the hydrostatic pressure, is greater than the oncotic pressure, we have a net movement of water into the tissue fluid and into the cells. So the hydrostatic pressure is greater than the oncotic pressure in the top half of the capillary. As we move through the capillary, you'll see that the hydrostatic pressure has reduced because it's just lost energy as it flows through the tube. So the hydrostatic pressure at this end is only 2.3 kilopascals, whereas the oncotic pressure is still 3.3 kilopascals of oncotic pressure. And so because this number is greater than this number, the water movement will go that way. So basically, at the top end, the hydrostatic pressure is greater than the oncotic pressure, and so the water moves this direction. But at this end, we've got the hydrostatic pressure is less than the oncotic pressure, and so the water moves this way. So that's the water movement. The nutrients, the ions, the lipids, the glucose is all diffusing this way from a region of high concentration to low concentration. But the water, although most of it will go back into the capillary and into the blood, about 10% of the water will get drained off by these lymphatic ducts. So this is part of the lymphatic system, and it's continued over here. And the lymphatic system will also get some of the nutrients, will come in, diffuse in, and also the white blood cells can get into the lymphatic system. And the way you can think of the lymphatic system is just like it's like a storage system for these white blood cells. So white blood cells can migrate into these tubes and then they get stored. So I've got another picture here of the lymphatic system. So this is the lymphatic system, and so all of the lymph, which is the water that needed to be reabsorbed in the lymph nodes, and some of the glucose, some of the ions, not very much, but some of them, and the white blood cells all travel in this sort of secret circulatory system called the lymphatic system, and it just allows white blood cells to get to where they're needed. So it's really just a storage system for the white blood cells, and you'll see these dots, which are called lymph nodes, which is where all of the white blood cells end up, and they kind of get stored in these nodes. You've got some in your throat, and when you get ill you can feel them swelling up, so that's when they're all getting excited and ready to pounce on your pathogens or your infections. So your lymph nodes are where your white blood cells kind of get stored, and everything that's in the lymphatic system can drain back into the blood supply, kind of under your shoulder blades in these kind of subclavian ducts. So you've got a right subclavian vein and a left subclavian vein, and this is where stuff from the lymphatic system can cross over back into the blood circulatory system. So lymphatic system, storage of white blood cells. This capillary is just high pressure, high hydrostatic pressure beating the oncotic pressure, which is just the pressure caused by the water wanting to go this way because of high concentration of the plasma proteins. And I think that's about it. So hopefully that is sorted out in your mind, and any questions you can let me know on Sunday. Okay, bye for now.